Okay, then what are the components of the ISO 27001 standard? As we mentioned, ISO 27001, it's required. They are requirements. Requirements for protecting the information and manage it, for protecting ISMS. What are the requirements and how the standard is split? The standard consists of two components, clauses and annex. Clauses and annex. What are clauses? Clauses, they are the requirements, the ISO 27001 requirements. If you have these clauses implemented in your organization, then this means that you are compliant with ISO 27001. They are 11 clauses. They are 11 clauses starting from clause 0 till clause 10. Clause 0 to clause 3, they are describing the ISO 27001 standard itself. And from clause 4 to clause 10, they are describing the requirements for the information security in your organization. Then this means that as a security administrator, you have to work very close with the clause 4 till clause 10 to make your company compliant with ISO 27001. Okay, the second component is the annex or Annex A. What is Annex A? Annex A, it consists of security controls. It consists of security controls. It consists of 114 controls, and we are grouped in 14 sections. And as we mentioned in the previous sessions, that when we are saying control, don't think about technical control only. Don't think about technical control only, because it can have administrative control, it can have physical control, it can have technical control, or it can have managerial control. And we will go through all these controls in the last day. And tomorrow we will go through the component, clauses one by one to understand what are the requirements for ISO 27001 to be implemented in the organization to be compliant with the requirements. Okay, any questions about the ISO 27001 components? Any questions? Do I have a problem with my internet connection?
That's good.
No, it's perfect.
At least, gentlemen, give me some impression to know that my router is up and running. I am not disconnected.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Perfect, Abu Yahya. Go ahead.
Okay. I am afraid that you are slaving. Please, if you are attending this course in the bedroom, then I really appreciate if you can take your notebook to the
we are here.
room.
Don't worry. We are here. You got. Thanks.
Right. Okay.
It is a mixed feedback. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Then, what are the components, as we mentioned? First type of components, we said the clauses. And we mentioned that we have 11 clauses, and we are starting from clause 0 till clause 10. These are the clauses. Clause number 0, it's the introduction. It is general overview of the standard. Clause number 1, the scope. What is the standard scope? Tell me, what do you mean by scope? There's a question. What do you mean by scope? When you will say scope, what do you think? what is coming in your mind when we say the scope of this document so and so, or the scope of this standard so and so, or the scope of something is so and so? What do you mean, or what the scope means?
The boundaries away.
Like a frame of work.
Okay, any other opinion?
We can say the area that we will focus on it.
Where the standard will be valid and work in.
Okay.
Statement of work, we need to apply it.
Sorry?
Statement of work, we need to apply it.
Okay. The scope, it is considered with the area, or the it is the area which we have to include it in our process. What do we mean? When we say what is our scope for ISO 27001, we will say that our scope for ISO 2001 to implement the standard on some specific products in a specific area. This is our scope. Then what are the components, or what is the area where we concentrate on? It's not the whole organization. I may have an organization distributed worldwide, but my ISO implementation, it will care only about a specific region, about a specific product, about a specific service, and so on. And this is what we call it scope. Okay? Clause number 2, it is the references, some references for the ISO 27001. Scope number 3, terms and conditions and definitions for the standard. These are the clauses which are related to the ISO 20071 standard itself. Starting from clause number 4, we will start for the requirements for the ISO 27001. And again, don't forget, when we say clauses, it means the requirements. When we say clauses, requirements. If you are not comply with these clauses, your company, it's not comply with ISO 27001. Okay? Number 1, what is the, number 4, the context or the clause number 4, it depends upon the context of the organization, or it discussing the context of the organization. As you remember, we said we have to understand the context of the organization. We have to understand the internal and external factors. We have to understand interested parties and their requirements, what is our scope, and so on. In point number 4, I have a lot of questions which I want to share with you. What are the internal and external factors which it can affect the organization? It can make sense because these factors, it will affect the goals, measures, objectives, and consequently, it will affect define the assets, which it will represent the important asset which we have to protect. But gentlemen, why do you say, first of all, what is the meaning of interested parties? What do we mean by interested parties? What is the definition of interested parties? What do you think?
The stakeholders,
stakeholders, vendors.
Okay,
clients.
stakeholders. But stakeholders, again, what is the definition of stakeholders?
Interested parties away.
The parties who have some concern about the subject.
Okay. Any other opinion?
The parties who have some role in the subject in any way.
Okay. I can see in front of me that I have 2 persons who are working in project management, or at least have some certificate in project management. What is the definition of stakeholders, gentlemen? Muhammad Askar, what is the definition of stakeholder?
All one can affect or affected by our mission in the project. Anyone.
Okay. Is it positive or negative effect?
Two, positive or negative.
That's right. This is the definition of the stakeholder. Stakeholder, these are the persons who are affected by the project or affected by the ISO. And this effect, it can be positive or negative. It can be positive or negative. Any effect on a specific person, it will be considered as an effect which you have to take it in your consideration. And this, which we call it in some in ISO 27001, they call it interested parties. Okay? Right. The second question, why do you think to understand the interested parties as mentioned in point 4 number 2 and their requirements, it's important for ISO 27001? I want to implement ISO for my organization, but why ISO 2001? It's mentioned that you have to work very close with your interested parties and understand their requirements before going further to implement the ISMS and ISO. Why? Just think about it. We want to take it an open discussion.
Abu Yahya, are you there?
Yeah. I am waiting to hear your opinion.
Sorry, I was muted and while I was speaking. Usually the stakeholders, Abu Yahya, it will include the management and the top management, which are part of the stakeholders. And usually collecting their requirements are playing a major role for your work and for the organization. So you have to consider their requirements because it will be interpreted into either a policies or it will be interpreted into either a framework that you need to work on. So it is very important to consider them part of the requirement to be there in alignment with the organization strategy and in alignment with your policies that are in place.
Okay, great. This is good. But according to your explanation, Wael, I can understand we are concentrating on the internal interested parties. What about the external ones? Because
Like
interested parties or stakeholders, it's not only the internal, it can be internal and external.
It's like supplier.
It can be a supplier, okay. And why do I want to understand the supplier requirements to implement the ISO?
Or also government instructions.
Okay, government instructions. For Wael, the explanation which you highlighted, Wael, it will be mainly in 4.1, internal and external fact. Sorry, no, you are right. It's in 4.2 for the internal users. Okay. Then, as Wael mentioned, this is very important to understand the interested parties, internal interested parties feedback, and the external interested parties as well. Gentlemen, the external interested parties, it's very important for us. Why? Because what are the type of external parties which we can have? Just tell me. What do you think? Who are our interested parties for our organization?
The partners.
Partners, okay. Who else?
Suppliers.
Okay. Customers, vendors.
Customers, yes.
Vendors, supply chain, and so on. When all these persons are affecting directly in my goals and targets, right? If it's customer, it's supply chain, partners, vendors, and so on. And even if it's customers as well. And these people, they are affecting my company, not because I am a gentleman and I want everyone to be happy of me, but because they have a very important role in my company. Customers, they are paying me money for my service. Vendors and partners, they are supporting my services. And users, they are utilize my service. Then I have to understand their requirements. And for example, customers, we are expecting that when you are distributing, they are distributing their data or they are giving their data to you. This means that this data, it will be protected. Otherwise, you may lose your reputation if the data it's leaked by some way, right?
Right.
Then this means that the external interested parties are very important, and you have to understand what are their expectations from you. The vendor, it's maybe a big company, and we are allowing you to use their services or applications or whatever their resources. Then we are expecting that you will protect their resources. You will not leak any information. You will not have any attack, or you will not arrange any attack, or there is no attack. It will be arranged against their company because of your bad usage or whatever. And this is very important, that to understand the interested parties and their requirements. This is the point why the interested parties requirements is very important, especially as we mentioned that the interested parties are distributed into two, or they are split into two sections, internal and external. Finally, the ISMS scope, where you have to apply the ISO 27001. What are the services, the products, the areas, and so on. Then we will come to clause number 5. Clause number 5, this is a leadership commitment. Gentlemen, without a leadership commitment for ISO 27001, it will fail. No discussion. Without commitment for ISO 2001 implementation from top management, it will fail. Leadership, we have some responsibilities we have to provide it. And we will discuss this in more details tomorrow, inshallah. Clause number 6, we are discussing the planning. We are discussing planning. Sorry?
Sorry for interrupting you.
Sure.
Can you go back for the previous slide, please? Clause number 4 and 5.
Okay.
What is mentioned in the description and the standards columns? I don't segregate between them.
Description, this is a description. What does it mean? Clause standard, this is the number of the clause as mentioned in ISO 27001 document. In ISO 27001 document, we call number 4, context of the organization, 4.1, internal and external factors, and so on. This, as you will see in the ISO 27001 documentation. But the clause description, this is its description of the clause in normal language, English language. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That's good. In clause number 6, it highlights the planning. Mainly in planning, we are discussing the risk assessments. What are the risk assessment, risk analysis, statement of applicability, risk treatment, and so on. Of course, what we are mentioning here, it may be somehow complicated, but as you will see tomorrow, it's very simple and it's very interesting. And tomorrow we will cover this in our session. Clause number 7, it speaks about support. Support for implementing ISO 27001 and operating ISO, we have multiple issues. We need resources, we need competence, we need awareness, we need communication, we need control of documents. These are the requirements to support the ISO design, implementation, operation, and continuous movement. It is very important. Adnan, please take care because I am afraid that you are writing something on the screen.
I'm sorry, Abu Yahya, for that.
No
I'm
problem.
not sure what button was pushed.
No problem, no problem. Okay, then the support, as we mentioned, it have the multiple things which we have to provide it for implementing the ISO as resources, competence, awareness, communication, documented information, and this again, what will be covered tomorrow. Clause number 8, it will be the operations. What are the requirements from the operation to run the ISO 27001 and keep it in continuous improvement? We need the planning, we want the control, we want monitor the control, we have to check the effectiveness of the controls, we have to review the risk assessment process, we have to review the risk treatment plan, and so on. And this it have to be in a continuous process to make sure that everything is running fine. Clause number 9, performance evaluation. We have to evaluate the performance of the ISO 27001, and this it can be done through monitoring, measurement, analysis, internal audits, and management reviews. Of course, these points are very related to each other, and we will discover that they are represent a harmony for implementing the continuous improvement, which is clause number 10 for the ISO 27001, and to discover the non-conformities and corrective actions to resolve these conformities. Question. You remember in the last session we discussed the incident, right? And when I asked what is the incident, I remember that well, he said that it is something which affects the service or the availability. Now, gentlemen, what is non-conformities? What is a non-conformity? Which is in clause 10.1. Non-conformity. What is a non-conformity? These expressions are very important. You have to know it very well. In the exam, not in Foundry, it is in the lead implementer and lead auditor. When you will have exam, if you don't understand these expressions well, you will lose some questions. What is the meaning of non-conformities? Please think and give me an answer.
You are not compliant with the standards of Yahya.
Okay. Any other opinion?
Maybe the deviation from how it is defined in the document.
Okay. Okay. As ISO 27001, they defined non-conformities that they are unachieved requirements. Yani, as you mentioned, Adnan and well, your definition is right. But as in terminology of ISO 27001, it is the unachieved requirements. It is some requirements which are not achieved. What is the difference between non-conformities and incident? What is the difference between non-conformities and incident?
You are for the non-conformities, usually you are not fulfilling the requirements. However, there is no interruption to the services. But for the incidents, there is interruption or degradation for the service itself.
Thank you very much. Well, this is the right answer. This is the real difference between the non-conformities and the incident. Non-conformities, it is unachieved requirements, but it does not affect our operations. But the incident, there is again non-conformities, but it affects the operation by some way, and it affects the availability or the security of the data. Okay, you remember this cycle. Again, what is this cycle called? Someone, not Wael and Adnan. I want to hear from someone else.
Control quality.
It's called the BDCA.
BDCA, control quality.
Right, and?
Control quality.
No.
Quality control.
No. It is used in quality control, but if you will say to someone quality control cycle, no one you will understand. It is known by two different names, BDCA and
cycle.
Deming cycle. Yes, these are the two names for this cycle. Now, as we mentioned, BDCA and the ISO 27001, it is continuous improvement and it has a quality, and they are distributed as follows. In the plan phase, you will have clause 4, 5, 6, 7, organization context, leadership and commitment, planning support and support. In phase 2, we will have the operations. In phase check, we will have performance evaluation. And finally, in the act phase, we will have the continual improvement. This is the mapping of the clauses of the ISO 27001 to the deeming cycle or the BDCA. Okay. As we discussed that we had two different components in the ISO 27001. We have the clauses and the annex. And we said that annex, it's called Annex A. It consists of 114 controls, and we are grouped in 14 sections. It starts from A5 into A18. And as you can see, this distribution as follows. Number 5, it's information security policies, organization of information security, human resource security, asset management, access control, cryptography, physical and environment security, operational security, communication security, system acquisition, development and maintenance, supplier relationship, information incident, and business continuity, and finally the compliance. For this slide, I have two questions, gentlemen. Question number 1 and 2 at the same time. What is, now we can understand that we are implementing security solutions. Okay, for managing security of our assets. Why human resources security and supplier relationship are considered in our implementation? Why the human resources security and supplier relationship security are considered in the ISO 27001? Although it's not related to any information. What do you think?
This is to ensure avoiding the abuse of the resources that we are here.
Okay, any other opinion?
Because eventually human resources will be implementing everything else.
Okay. What about the supplier?
The same way here, to ensure they are not abusing the exchanged information in a wrong direction.
Okay. Again, gentlemen, I will come here to the same point which I highlighted before. What is the main objective for ISO 27001? Protect assets, right? Protect assets. Right. Human resources is very important because human, it is the main asset for any organization. Human resources, it is the main asset for any organization. When people, they are the assets. Besides people, we are the weakest point in the security chain. When they consider the human resources security here. And for the supplier relationship, as Wael mentioned, we have to protect our data from the supplier, because by the end of the day, we are not a part of our organization, but mainly because the supplier, they are providing us with the services. Then if the supplier, he failed to provide the service, then our asset, it may be affected. Our asset, which it can be a product, a service, repetition. Then, as we mentioned, gentlemen, when you don't have an answer for a question, just check what is the ISO 27001 objective. The main objective, protecting assets. Okay? Any questions?
Okay, أبو يحيى سجل.
Okay.
Abu Yahya, my question, if you allow me.
Sure.
Is it possible